Welcome to Nineworks TV. On my drive, to my right, we have my beloved 996 Carrera, aka Little Irish, very well known. To my left, we've got a 964 Carrera Cabriolet. But what's it doing on my drive, and why are you going to be seeing more of it on this channel? This is going to represent something of a high watermark for me. Those that have followed my stuff via Nineworks TV on YouTube or the podcast or even the last 10 years at Total 911 magazine will know that I've pretty much driven literally every 911 you can think of. And yet amongst all of that, the past few years, and this has been really well documented on the Nineworks Radio podcast by the way, I've just grown this fascination with classic 911 Cabriolets. I don't know where it's come from. It could well be the open-top Porsche 911 experience. It's pretty compelling. It gives you everything that we know and love about the 911 with the ability to hear that flat six singing away behind, as well as getting a bit of vitamin D on the old bonds. My interest though was piqued further when I found out that several prominent personalities from within Porsche Germany own classic cabs. I'm talking Andreas Preuninger owns a 993 Cabriolet, Dr. Frank Stefan Volliser, head of the 911 production line these days, owns a 993 Cabriolet. Tony Hatter, the guy that penned the iconic Porsche 993, does not own a 993 Coupe, he owns a Cabriolet. So, you know, again, all these people that are so prominent within that company are driving Cabriolets, and you do start to think, well, maybe I'm not as insane as I thought I was. Maybe there is genuine charm to the idea of running a classic Cabriolet. Which brings me round to why I'm sitting in this 964 Cabriolet, and while I've driven it off of my drive, a really good friend of mine, Nigel, whose car this belongs to, has lent this to me on a long-term loan, knowing full well I really love classic cabriolets. So look, Nigel, first of all, as I know you'll be watching, thank you so much, mate, for giving me this stupendous opportunity to just dip my toe in the water and just find out if the reality really is as good as the dream. What we're going to be doing then is something of a mini series. We're going to be studying in detail the pros and cons of living with a classic 911 Cabriolet. We're going to be putting this car through its paces. We'll have the initial test drive, we'll take it on a longer run, something of a road trip. We'll drive it in the rain, we'll drive it roof up, roof down. We will literally immerse ourselves in the ownership experience of this very car with the aim of answering the question, is it worth living with a classic 911 Cabriolet? Let's take a quick look at the history of the 911 Cab, first being introduced near the end of SC production in 1982. By the turn of the 3.2 Carrera, the hood mechanism had become electrically operated via a switch under the dash, and the system would remain largely the same for the subsequent 964 and 993 generation Cabriolets. The plastic rear screen still in use on early 996 Cabriolets was swapped out for a heated glass screen by the year 2000, and the electric hood could be operated at speeds of up to 31 miles an hour, while the hood was stowed fully behind the rear seats for the first time, rather than merely being plonked on top. The 997 Z-frame design was lightened over the 996. The 991 Cabriolet silhouette mimics that of the Coupe. By the 992, greater emphasis also replaced on reducing rolling road noise with the roof up, to further reduce the gap to that of the Coupe. There's some added romance to all of this as well, without becoming too gushing, but my first experience of a Porsche 911 was in a 964 Cabriolet. My dad's friend turned up at our house back in Essex, and he turned up in a Guards Red 964 Cabriolet. I was about 7 or 8 years old, so we're talking late 90s. And yeah, my dad's friend said, I'll take your boy out in the car if you like. So yeah, the two of us bumbled off into the Essex countryside. I was sitting here buckled into behind the seatbelt as I am now, and I could just hear this noise of the flat six engine behind me. And I was just petrified that whatever this noise was coming from behind the car rather than in front. As a kid, that's a concept that takes a bit of time to get your head around. I thought I was basically going to be kind of swept up from underneath the seatbelt, up and over the seat and into the engine or whatever this noise was behind. Yeah, so I was a little bit scared of it actually at first. How funny. Nevertheless, nearly 3 decades later, here we are. So I'm driving the car and have this opportunity of this extended test drive with a car that, well, it's my first ever experience of a Porsche 911. So yeah, to me that is extremely special. And again, just adding to the romance of it all here is I'm born in 1989. This is a 1989 car. Anyway, I promised that this would be a holistic look at classic cabriolets, and particularly the 964 Cabriolet. So with that in mind, let's cross over to Ian Harris at Harris Classics. Ian specialises in Porsche 964s. I've done some videos with him in the past. I'll put a link here to the most recent one. And Ian can offer some key specialist insight into what you need to know when it comes to running or even looking at Porsche 964 Cabriolets.
There's a stigmatism that's attached with 964s. Everyone wants manual coupe, which is what we've got behind us. Things I like about convertibles is that with an electric roof, you can have it in your driveway with the roof up. At the touch of the button, the roof goes down. So it's very easy. You know, it's 2 cars in one. In terms of selection in the UK, the amount of 964 convertibles on sale converted to coupes, you get a lot better selection. So you can be more picky in what you're buying. So you can nail down into condition and the history more. So you're getting a better car, and they're all a lot cheaper than coupes as well. And in my view, they're not half the car. They're not quite half the money, but they're definitely not half the car. Things to consider with convertibles is mechanically you need to look at the same things as with a coupe. So it's rust, bodywork, service history, top end rebuild, oil leaks. They're your main factors. Separate to that with the convertible, the roof motors are notoriously bad for going wrong, and the condition of the convertible top itself, they are very expensive to replace, and the motors are very expensive as well. So if you're buying a convertible, get in, check that the mechanism goes back, locks into place correctly, and listen for noisy motors. If it's nice and smooth and quiet its operation, then you can't guarantee them, but they're going to be okay. If they're very noisy, you can almost hear them notching up, then one of them's on its way out, and it's just a factor to have. The other thing to look at, if the cars aren't garaged, they live outside, you're going to get a lot more water ingress. So lift up the front mats, look for water in the footwells. A coupe, you can sometimes get them if the seals aren't fitted properly around the windscreen and so forth, but more so with the Targa and convertible, you're more susceptible to water ingress. If the car's lived outside, they lift up the carpets in the front, get a look in, because if there's water in there, you're going to get condensation in the car, corrosion. That's really the big thing with convertibles, and that's applicable to Targas as well. With Targas and cabs, I prefer the look of a Targa, but I prefer the ease of a convertible. You know, with a convertible, you hit the button, roof goes back, you're off. And also, if you're out and about and you pop into the shops, and typical English weather, it does rain, you can put the roof up very quickly. With the Targa roof, it's non-mechanical, so it does need to be taken off, lifted off, folded up, put in the front. It's a process to it. And don't rule out Tiptronics. I don't mind a Tiptronic, to be fair. So
seems to suit a cab quite well, I think. It's a bit of a boulevard cruiser.
100%. Convertibles, I think, are great in Tiptronic, as are Targas. Coupes, money no option, obviously. C2 manual coupes, that's where you want to be, but they're very difficult to find and very expensive.
That brings an end to part 1 of what will be this mini YouTube series, living with a classic 964 Cabriolet. I'm really excited to see where this journey goes. I'm really excited to bring you along on the journey as well, as we really deep dive into the pros and cons of living with this very different 911 to the 996 Carrera Coupe that's on my drive. See you next time for a new challenge where we explore this car and deep dive into its merits and DNA a little bit further. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again soon.